Hello everyone, nice to meet you.
Can you actually
My menu today. This is Super Veggie version 2. This is version 1. Hello everyone, today is the first day that I want to become a vegan in my life by use scientific and science evidence. This is called Super Veggie and this nothing pudding. I put this gas into this my sweet and I call this Super Veggie version 2. It have a lot of veggie, and this is for my vitamin C, and this for antioxidant. Good. Yeah. Every meal have antioxidant, and then I try this matcha green tea. Okay, let's go.
reverse aging? Can you actually reverse aging? For those of us that are old enough to go to our 20 or 30-year-old high school reunion, we know that if you were to go there, some people look exactly like they did when they graduated high school, so they haven't changed since they were 18. Whereas there might be other people who you don't even recognize, and you look at them and you think, I can't possibly be that old. We haven't aged that much. So we know inherently that people don't all age at the same rate, and some of us are going to be faster agers, and some of us are going to be slower agers. A lot of people are very concerned about the aging process because of what it does to our appearance. But actually, we know that aging starts on the inside. So how can we actually quantify the aging process at either the cellular or molecular level? We think this is really critical because it probably has implications for the risk of disease in the future, the remaining life expectancy, and other things that we all care about in terms of our health. Ultimately, the question is, how do you become a slow ager? What scientists think is that there are actually changes at the molecular cellular level that will differentiate how quickly people will age and how they actually look on the outside. So people in the field have come up with what we might call hallmarks of aging. So what are these different changes that we see tracking with aging and also linking to the manifestations that all of us recognize as a part of the aging process? One of these hallmarks that my lab in particular is very interested in is this concept of epigenetics. We all know genetics, so our sequence of DNA that gives rise to our different genes. And epigenetics is really what I like to think of as the operating system.
Hello everyone. Hi. Right on. Thank you for your nice breakfast.
Of the cell is what gives
Nice.
each cell its different kind of defining characteristics and phenotype. So even the
I try my best to reverse my aging and stop my aging. This is the breakfast I have. This is all food I eat in today. This is all.
the cells in your skin and the cells in your brain have essentially the exact same DNA. What makes them different is the epigenome. It gives them their overall function and structure. One form of epigenetics is called DNA methylation. Scientists found that DNA methylation is changed quite dramatically with aging. And using things like machine learning and AI, we've actually been able to predict how old someone appears based on DNA methylation. And this has been referred to as the epigenetic clock, which is basically just a way to try and quantify biological age based on either gains or losses in methylation at specific regions throughout the genome. We always think of the movie Benjamin Button where he aged in reverse. I don't know if scientifically that is possible, especially at a whole body, whole organismal level, although we do know that you can reverse the age of a cell. Every cell in our body has a very specific function, and this function is really dictated by the epigenome.
Program language. Hawan Kuma Verma Hawan Ku Program language by Free Palestine. Hello everyone.
The problem is that with aging, the epigenome becomes remodeled, either due to stress or random errors. And what this produces is that each cell is actually going to lose its identity and not function in the way it was initially intended. And over time, as more and more cells become dysfunctional, you can imagine how this would produce dysfunction at the organ level and eventually at the whole system level. And the epigenome is highly dynamic. These are things that can go, we think, in both directions. So you can increase epigenetic age, but we've also shown that you can actually reverse this in cells. Shinya Yamanaka actually won the Nobel Prize for discovering 4 factors that can convert an old cell back into what looks like an embryonic stem cell. And later, as scientists were applying things like the epigenetic clock to this data, we found that not only are you changing the cell type, but you're also erasing or essentially reversing all those epigenetic changes that we've used to try and quantify biological age. We always thought aging really happened in one direction, and that the only thing you could really do was just slow the accumulation of this damage. But really what this reprogramming of the epigenome tells us is that this is a lot more modifiable and elastic than we originally knew. So the question becomes, how do you do this in a body? Can you actually program cells from an old epigenetic state back into a younger epigenetic state? What does this actually mean for our physiology and our health? Right now, people are using the epigenetic clock as more of a diagnostic as opposed to a means to intervene. So people are using it as potentially one indicator of how they're aging overall. It's not a perfect indicator, but it can give people some indication of their health status and potentially their overall risk of developing different diseases of aging. A lot of the changes that cells undergo with aging, including changes to the epigenome, give rise to some diseases like cancer. So the risk of cancer increases exponentially with age, and we think some of this might be due to the types of changes that are measured when we look at the epigenome. The reason why scientists are so excited about the idea of intervening in the aging process, whether it be slowing the aging process or reversing the aging process, is because we actually think that in doing so, we can stop all of the different changes that are giving rise to the diseases that we care about. So rather than going after one disease at a time and having one type of science aimed at trying to cure cancer and another aimed at diabetes, if we actually could reverse or slow aging, we could basically eliminate diseases or at least postpone diseases across the board. So are we going to solve death, and will the epigenetic clock help us get there? My thinking is that we probably will not solve death, and this actually shouldn't be our goal. What our hope is that this will just postpone disease.
And his team were able to show that mice lived longer.
What is aging? Is it possible for us to affect it? How much more can we do? These are big questions. They're going to take us to answers that are going to be illuminating. What is aging? Is it possible for us to affect it? How much more can we do? These are big questions. They're going to take us to answers that are going to be illuminating to mankind as a whole.
Aging has become a hot topic. We are right now at a point where we can already develop strategies.
Spritzen, Anregung, injections, stimulation methods, personal programs, pills. We're in the midst of a seismic shift that will open up possibilities for more healthy aging.
There is something in the air and we can feel it. And plenty of people who already show you gold nuggets, and say, there's gold here,
Right now we're seeing a huge gold rush. Once the proof of concept is established in longevity, it will go viral.
Muy posiblemente la persona.
The person who will live to 150 has probably already been born. It's highly likely.
Ya está aquí. Eso es muy probable.
Right now. How old do I think I will be? I think that, I do want to live a full and healthy life. So I think whatever number I can live until at that time, that guarantees me to have a very healthy life. I love that number. I go to bed early, I wake up early just because this is important for my health to do this, so I do it. It's really good to be consistent in your sleep schedule. It's easy for me to be consistent with waking up at 5 because it's sort of some nice quiet time, and it's so I do it's that out of consistency because that's a really important thing for your circadian rhythms. So yeah.
First became interested in longevity research when she was 12. Now the teenager is one of the scene's rising stars. Nina stands for a generation that takes a new view of aging, that wants to see aging eradicated. When she's not in school, Nina holds talks around the world. She's launched a small startup with a couple of friends. The group searches for scientific clues on how to crack the aging code.
Yeah, but I can work on that side. One of our proteins is probably involved with that process in some way, so we could weigh how much that protein is involved in that process and try to give an estimate, even if we're not adding a whole new protein involved with that process. Yeah, I think that definitely is something that's useful to measure. My grandfather did have a form of dementia. That was, a big problem, and I wanted to do something about that. 1 in 6 women get dementia after the age of 65, and 1 in 10 men, which is a lot of people when you think about it, right? It's these diseases that you previously thought were inevitable, so we thought maybe we'd have drugs to alleviate the pain or to stop one particular type of disease from occurring. But never sort of to, look at the root cause of these diseases and tackle it from there.
Each animal species has, in certain ways, an expiration date. In a mouse, it's less than 5 years. In the bowhead whale, it's 211 years. In humans, it's 122. Each species has a time that's kind of allocated to it. And the question is, why is that?
In nature, death is a normal part of life. But can we humans push this biological age limit? Human life expectancy has risen steadily in recent history. Back in ancient Rome, it was just 25 years. By the Middle Ages, it was still only 35. Now, we live into our 70s on average. Medical advances and better living conditions are enabling us to get older and older. But can we extend our lifespan indefinitely? And would we really want to?
Lots of people want to live forever, and they wonder if we can reverse or slow down the aging process.
Was verändern kann.
History tells us so much about violence, death, and dying, but it also touches on reincarnation in life. It's a hugely popular theme. Immortality is a topic that will never die.
Ist unsterblich.
In Germany, there's a famous painting, The Fountain of Youth, and on the painting you see all the old men and women particularly taking their clothes off and getting into the Fountain of Youth and swimming across to the other side and emerging young and healthy on the other side, and then going off to the tents and dressing and then having a wonderful dinner together with plenty of wine. And it's man's age-old dream to be able to reverse aging.
This fountain of youth has become an allegory in biomedical research. It's no longer just about eating a healthy diet and leading a balanced lifestyle. We want to make more serious adjustments. We can take pills or get injections and so on, and we'll end up living longer. The idea of the fountain of youth that's outside me, that I can jump into, is shifted to a fountain that's put inside me, injected into me.
Reingespritzt, gebastelt.
We're closer to finding the fountain of youth than ever before. But what if aging were a kind of program? A program we could hack into? An initial clue as to how humans might be reprogrammed leads to an unassuming setting in Central America.
I've lived in Costa Rica since 1972 and just completely fell in love with Costa Rica. The peninsula of Nicoya is a place where people age very well and long.
I think about it all the time. I think about it all the time because it's really mysterious. And they themselves cannot give you any clues as to why. You ask them and they say, I have no idea. It just is what it is. But yet we are more curious and we want to know more.
Gail Glenn takes care of some of the region's centenarians. The residents of Costa Rica's Nicoya Peninsula not only live longer, but stay healthy for longer too.
¿Cómo están? Ay, muy bien. Cuánto me alegro ver aquí de nuevo.
Neri Socorro is 91. People here often live to be over 90, many to over 100. These are herbs you use to heal diseases? That's right. Lots of people around the world want to know how to live a long and healthy life. What's your advice? You did. Live for many years. Eat a healthy diet and lead a peaceful, stress-free life. Eggs, lots of vitamins, cheese. When a person eats lots of cheese, their heart won't suffer.
This area was very, very distantly removed from the mainland, so to speak. It's a peninsula. It's still connected, but our roads were bad. Communication didn't exist. People survived here on what they planted, on what their parents taught them how to survive. There was no pharmacy to go to.
That smells so good. This herb treats fever and all kinds of things. The fact that people in Nicoya live to be older than average went largely unnoticed until one scientist stumbled onto some unusual data some years ago.
วันที่จะเปลี่ยนแปลงชีวิตตัวเองและการเป็น
I was initially an economist, but it never really felt like the right field for me. Eventually, I found my niche in demographics. It's much more precise, with clear-cut rules. It's black and white. By sheer coincidence, we discovered that mortality rates in the region were much lower than the rest of the country. Initially, I didn't pay much attention to it. When I presented my findings at a conference, there was a lot of skepticism about whether it was really so. But one person from the audience approached me afterwards and said, it's because it's a blue zone. And at that moment I realized that Nicoya really was a special place.
5 so-called blue zones have been identified so far on our planet. These are locations where an unusually high percentage of the population
โอกินาวาซาร์ดิเนียไอคาเรียนิโคยาโรมารินดาอันนี้คือที่5ที่ที่มีคนอายุยืนที่สุดในโลกค่ะดูโซน
lives very long. Men in Nicoya have the world's highest life expectancy. An 80-year-old male here is likely to outlive his contemporaries elsewhere by an average 8.2 years.
แต่ที่อยู่แต่ที่อากาศดีๆทั้งนั้นเลยเธอ
But why?
เขาใส่มะพร้าวกินนี่ไงมันต้องเหินเลย
Is it the diet rich in fruit in Nicoya, or does religious faith explain it? There wasn't any real data. The question is it genetics or is it lifestyle?
People in Costa Rica. Say pura vida, pura vida.
Un pequeño estudio que hicimos era ver qué pasaba.
We carried out a study to see what happens when people leave Nicoya and what happens when people from other parts of the country move to Nicoya.
Otras partes del país a vivir en Nicoya. Vimos que
We found out that neither of these groups achieved the same longevity as those who were born and spend their whole lives here.
allí vivieron todo el tiempo allí.
In blue zones, aging seems to proceed more slowly. The environment and the lifestyle appear to positively impact human biology. But how exactly? And will this help us crack the aging code?
Marriage pair.
I'm a molecular biologist, biochemist. I'm interested in understanding the origin of diseases. The majority of diseases are those associated to the aging process. So I'm interested in understanding why we age at the molecular level. I wanted to devote my life to understand the origins of cancer and aging. I thought telomeres could be the key.
The human body consists of around 37 trillion cells. Some last a few days, others live for years. We constantly produce new cells to replace the old ones. It's a process that involves duplication. Before cell division can take place, the chromosomes in the cell nucleus have to be duplicated. The DNA double helix they consist of is unwound and separated into strands. Each strand then becomes a template for a new one. The ends of the chromosomes, which are especially prone to replication errors, are protected by telomeres, which are sequences of non-coding DNA. But with every cell division, these safety caps become shorter.
What's that? Charged. I feel charged.
What's that? No? Is that shoe? Oh, the telomeres.
Imagine this shoelace is our chromosome. So this part of the shoelace is the DNA, where the genetic information is. And this little plastic part, which is very important to protect the shoelace, would be the telomere. So the telomeres are very important to protect our chromosomes, to protect the DNA. As we age, the telomeres become shorter and shorter. This is because every time that we have a damage, the cells have to multiply to regenerate the damage, and this shortens the telomeres, the cell division, the cell multiplication. So at the end, the telomeres become so short that we don't have anymore a telomere. So now our DNA is unprotected, and this is leading to aging, it's leading to disease, and ultimately will be leading to death.
Cell division and the rate of telomere shortening may be influenced by our lifestyle. Smoking, stress, environmental pollutants, and poor nutrition are all negative factors. Some researchers believe living in harmony with the natural world has a positive effect.
Nosotros aquí.
We couldn't carry out experiments like this in Costa Rica, so we sent our samples away. When the results of this collaboration came back, we realized we'd found something.
Los resultados y decimos, no, aquí hay algo, ¿verdad? Encontramos que las personas de Nicoya tienen
People from Nicoya have longer telomeres, significantly longer telomeres than people in the rest of the country.
el resto del país.
Scientists like Maria Blasco are exploring ways of artificially lengthening telomeres in order to slow the aging process. But this does come at a risk.
Die Gefahr dabei ist, dass Krebs. The danger is that cancer can develop because cancer cells are immortal. And we're walking a fine line here. Do we tell the cells to resist their pre-programmed cell death and risk that it will result in cancer? Or do we leave things to run their natural course and let the cells die when their time is up? Then there's no proliferation, and we just accept that our final destination is around 120 to 125 years. But of course, we all know the answer. Humans want to test the boundaries and see if they can really live to 150 or 300.
How far can we go? How much should science interfere in nature's blueprint?
We don't have to necessarily accept current biological limitation, because that's what we do as a species. We're problem solvers. We don't just sit around and get rained on. We build houses. So we may want to transcend normal biology at some point and set goals for ourselves beyond just normal concepts of health.
When you wonder about what is aging, you end up asking how tissues repair. This is a process that is still poorly understood. Cells progressively accumulate damage, they age, but when they reach a certain threshold, they undergo a switch, they become senescent.
I like to describe them as zombies because, you know, they're like in a middle state between alive and dead. They're not either, but they're at the same time, they're really damaging.
Senescent cells produce an alarm signal so that the other cells in the body realize that there is a damage there, and they go and they repair. The problem is that as we get old, these repair cells, they are also old, and they don't go and they don't repair. And we accumulate these cells that are constantly producing this alarm. This is a phenomenon that is called inflammaging. Old people have inflammatory signals elevated, caused by their own senescent cells that are not eliminated. We are trying to crack the code of these senescent cells, trying to understand the vulnerabilities, how to kill them without killing the non-senescent cells.
In some initial experiments, Manuel Serrano and his team were able to show that mice lived longer once their senescent or zombie cells were eliminated. But that does not guarantee eternal youth.
It's a double-edged sword. Senescent cells play also a very good and important role. For example, in wound healing. If you have a wound, if you don't have senescence, the wound will never heal. So you could have a treatment that removes all senescent cells and suddenly you have terrible side effects. It just means we need more research, you know.
Research into telomeres and zombie cells are only two approaches in the race for longevity. And one thing is certain, whoever cracks the code is set to earn millions.
All right. So guys, how do I look? Wow, I look old. So you've seen what we did. We've announced a $255 million raise. It's the largest raise in our industry to date. Hong Kong has the highest life expectancy on the planet today, which is no surprise because longevity is very often correlated with wealth. And here people are filthy rich. Welfare is increasing dramatically in the region. In China and mainland, people who were peasants just 35 years ago, they are now multi-millionaires, and people demand longevity. Who were peasants, and here people are filthy rich. welfare is increasing dramatically in the region. In China and mainland, people who were peasants just 35 years ago, they are now multi-millionaires, and people demand longevity. As a CEO of a biotech company, I try to collaborate with a lot of people, and I try to contribute to as many projects as possible. Life Clinic is a very fun concept where the founders decided to bridge the Starbucks concept with preventative medical care. You choose a cocktail of all kinds of nutrients that will be going into your blood while you're sipping on a juice. They offer IV drips and all kinds of other interventions. I cannot vouch for some of them. Yeah. Correct.
In Hong Kong, anything geared at increasing life expectancy already promises mega bucks. Dubious wonder drugs and IV drips are readily available. The region is also attracting biotech companies from around the world. Money from wealthy investors has created a much-hyped startup scene. Longevity research is Hong Kong's new .com boom.
A new development is that the research is being carried out with business startup methods, with massive capital. We're investing, we're pumping funds into it, we're throwing cash at it, and that will invariably result in a product. It's an infallible economic model. It will always work.
It's a market, it's a huge market. What these new companies want really is to have treatments for diseases. So that's where the big bucks are.
I'm willing to experiment on myself because there is a lot of data on me. I'm one of the most well-studied humans on the planet now. And I try to optimize for high performance at this point in time. I try to perform at my peak. I've tried rapamycin in the past. It's very often referred to as a magic drug in longevity, in the same line as metformin, but likely to be stronger than metformin. It's not without side effects. So there is a chance that you're going to see mucositis and a few others. So we decided to try it on ourselves in a very controlled mode. Any side effects? Not at all. Zero side effects. When I was exercising in the hotel, I got some serious muscle mass increases. Yeah, that's great. All right. Yep, that's me. So that's rapamycin.
Oh, thank you, Maurice. Thank you so much.
Right. It's to long life, literally. To long life.
Rapamycin, metformin, NAD boosters. Do any of these substances really help? How can their effectiveness be tested?
NAD.
I was interested in anti-aging science since I was a teenager growing up in Frankfurt, Germany. I had a group of friends who were very interested in science, and at some point we realized the most important challenge of our generation is to prolong life. We had very lofty goals, I need to tell you. We had crazy goals. We wanted to study physics, math, biology, chemistry. Also, we wanted to do space travel. And then the minute you think of space travel, you realize that you will need decades, to travel, or centuries. And so we felt we really need to solve this problem first, to extend our lifespan before we can even think about space travel. one day, by accident, really because I did somebody a favor, I analyzed these methylation data. I immediately recognized that epigenetics or methylation is really the data source that has a tremendous signal for aging.
He was able to find clusters of genes whose methylation state could tell you how old you were at a particular time. The amazing thing about this is that it works from the day you're created as a fertilized egg cell all the way until the day that you die.
There are more than 200 distinct cell types in the human body. Although they all contain the same DNA, there is a mechanism that tells the cell whether it is a skin cell or a liver cell, for example. Called epigenetics, this involves information that sits on the DNA, resulting in genes being switched on or off. Perhaps the best-known type of epigenetic change is methylation, the addition or removal of methyl groups on the DNA strand. These changes continue to take place throughout our lives.
The DNA contains 4 letters A, C, T, G. Methylation sometimes attaches to the letter C and modifies it, similar to an umlaut. By keeping track very carefully which parts of the DNA gain methylation or lose methylation, we can measure aging. Methylation can be thought of like the rust that accumulates. By measuring the amount of rust, we can determine age. So if we have an hourglass, the passage of time is measured by how much sand accumulates at the bottom. The DNA molecule, though, has 28 million different hourglasses because we have 28 million letter C in our DNA. So by averaging the measurements of 28 million hourglasses, you arrive at a very accurate measure of age.
This is one of the most insightful discoveries in the history of mankind. Like the invention of the wheel.
That definitely was a turning point in aging. I think that was just a very, very important point where we were like, hey, we can measure aging now.
The epigenetic clock has revolutionized research into aging. With a simple DNA sample, anyone's biological age can be determined. However, that can produce some nasty surprises.
My name is Marcus Horvath, and I'm Steve's identical twin brother. He's my older twin brother. He's 5 minutes older than me. However, only at birth. We measured our epigenetic clock a couple of years ago. Then, according to one of the clocks, I was actually 4 years older than him, which is not necessarily good news.
Those technologies are enabling us to accelerate aging research dramatically by not waiting until you die. We can now measure where you are in life and measure how different interventions affect that prediction. We picked this up and applied AI to the same problem and developed many aging clocks.
Above all, the quest for eternal life requires personal biological data. The digital devices we use every day can provide mountains of it. Big data is currently one of the most promising approaches to cracking the aging code. Unlike conventional medicine, artificial intelligence can scour the data for hidden patterns to help prevent diseases from developing in the first place.
This situation looks very similar to theft on the subway. Somebody pulled your wallet, and you don't know who. Every human on the train looks the same. They move in different patterns. So you need to observe many of those theft scenarios in many subways globally to develop a really precise algorithm for catching a thief on a subway. And you train AI technologies to recognize those thieves and predict human behavior. And I think nowadays in advanced countries like mainland China, there are video monitoring techniques that allow you automatically to recognize the theft movement. So it's very similar to recognizing those proteins that misbehave during aging and cause trouble. Yeah, so what we're going to do now, we're going to solve